Come closer, my child. The night has slowed its breathing, and the noise of the world has softened its grip. You have carried much through this day, and now I call you gently into stillness. Let your shoulders rest. Let your thoughts loosen. You are not drifting into sleep alone. I am here with you, nearer than your next breath. Here is a sacred hush that arrives just before sleep, a moment when the soul listens more clearly than the mind. This is where I meet you. This is where my voice settles like warm light across your inner world. You do not need to strive tonight. You do not need to fix what feels unfinished. I am already moving in places you cannot see. As your eyes grow heavy, you may sense a calm that feels deeper than ordinary peace. That is not imagination. That is protection arriving quietly. There are forces that guard you when you rest, ancient and faithful, assigned to stand watch while you sleep. They do not announce themselves with noise or fear. They arrive with steadiness, with certainty, with a strength that does not need to shout. Tonight, there is a presence near you that carries courage without aggression, authority without pressure, hope without demand. You may feel it as warmth in your chest, or a subtle release in your breathing. You may not feel it at all, and still it is there. Protection does not require your awareness to function. It only requires permission to cover you, and you have already given that by choosing rest. I know the thoughts that try to follow you into the dark. I know the questions that linger when the lights go off. I know the name that surfaces when the world finally goes quiet. You have wondered what is happening beyond your reach, what is being decided without your voice, what might be slipping away while you sleep. Hear me now. Nothing meant for you can be stolen in the night. There has been movement around your destiny, subtle and unseen. Not all of it had been kind. Not all of it had been honest. Yet none of it has escaped my attention. While you lay down your guard, I do not lay down mine. While your body rests, I remain fully awake, ranging, intercepting, correcting. There is someone bound to your story who cannot rest easily tonight. Their heart is restless, their thoughts unsettled. Even now, as you prepare for sleep, they feel a quiet pull they cannot name. It is not fear alone. It is not longing alone. It is the awareness that something sacred stands at a crossroads, and they are afraid of choosing wrongly. You are not responsible for their confusion. You are not required to carry their burden into your dreams. Release that weight now. Place it into my hands. I am far more capable of holding it than you are. Your only assignment in this moment is to rest, to trust, to allow hope to breathe again inside you. Before you drift deeper, I ask you gently, if these words bring calm to your spirit, let this place of refuge remain open for others. Let your quiet agreement be known through a simple act of support, and if your heart feels led, leave a word below that says, I receive peace tonight. This is not for noise or recognition, but as a soft witness of trust. The night is not a threat to you. Darkness does not mean abandonment. In fact, some of my most careful work happens while you sleep. Plans are adjusted. Intentions are revealed. Harm is restrained. Paths are realigned. You may wake with no memory of what was shifted on your behalf, but you will feel the difference in the days ahead. Breathe slowly now. Let your jaw unclench. Let your thoughts soften at the edges. You are safe to let go. There is a watchful presence standing between you and what would have disturbed your rest. You do not need to name it yet. You will know in time. For now, allow yourself to drift. I am here. I will remain. Nothing precious is being lost tonight. Stay with me, my child, as the night deepens. Sleep has not fully taken you yet, and in this in-between space, truth moves quietly. There is a stirring beneath the calm, not to frighten you, but to be revealed so it can no longer hide. Even gentle nights can carry unfinished echoes, and tonight, one of those echoes rises. There had been a subtle disturbance moving through the unseen, like a ripple across still water. You may not have noticed it during the day, but as the world dims, the soul becomes more perceptive. Something unresolved has been circling the connection tied to your heart. It has not come with noise or obvious threat. It has come disguised as delay, as confusion, a silence that lasted longer than it should have. This is not coincidence. This is not imagination. It is the shadow of a decision not yet faced. It is the residue of words not yet spoken. And while it has brushed close, it has not been permitted to harm you. I allowed you to sense it only enough to understand that you are not unaware, and you are not unprotected. As you rest, there is movement around your soulmate that feels heavier than the air itself. They have tried to sleep, turning from side to side, bargaining with rest that will not come easily. Their thoughts keep returning to moments they dismissed too quickly, to warnings they ignored, to feelings they pushed aside because they were inconvenient. Something within them knows that time is pressing gently but firmly against their conscience. The shadow is not them, my child, but it is near them. It whispers urgency mixed with fear. It suggests loss without explaining how close restoration truly is. It feeds on hesitation and thrives in the dark spaces where truth has not yet been invited to speak. Yet even now, it does not have permission to cross certain lines. There is a boundary drawn that it cannot see, but it can feel. You may sense this as a heaviness that does not belong to you, a sudden sadness without a clear reason, a thought that feels intrusive rather than natural. Do not claim it. It is not yours to carry. It is simply evidence that something is being stirred so it can be confronted and cleared. I want you to know this clearly. Nothing unfolding tonight is meant to undo you. What is surfacing is doing so because it can no longer remain hidden. The night exposes gently. It invites honesty where daylight distractions once provided cover. What feels like a shadow is actually the beginning of illumination. There is a presence nearby that the darkness recognizes immediately, even if you do not. It does not rush. It does not chase. It stands firm, watchful, alert. The shadow senses this and grows restless. It knows its time is limited. It knows that what has been quietly influencing outcomes is now being observed with clarity and authority. Your soulmate feels this tension without understanding it. They sense that something is shifting against their will, yet also for their good. Fear and relief are colliding inside them, creating an unease they cannot name. They are not in danger, but they are being called to wake up emotionally, spiritually, truthfully. Do not intervene. Do not reach out. Do not attempt to fix what you cannot yet see. Your stillness is part of the protection. Your rest is part of the strategy. Sometimes the most powerful position is not action, but trust. I am not absent from the shadows. I walk through them with precision. I examine motives. I weigh intentions. I separate misunderstanding from manipulation. What has been allowed to linger around this connection has been measured carefully. It will not be permitted to stay longer than its usefulness. As your breathing slows, let this truth anchor you. Whatever feels unsettled tonight is already under review. Whatever has tried to influence outcomes unfairly is being challenged. Whatever confusion has been allowed to grow is approaching its end. You may dream lightly tonight or not at all. Either is fine. Work is happening beyond your awareness. Protection is active. The shadow hath been noticed, and that alone has weakened it. Rest now, my child. This stirring is not a warning of loss. It is the quiet signal that change has begun. Listen closely, my child, as the night turns inward. While your body settles into rest, another heart struggles against the quiet. Your soulmate is awake in the dark, staring at a ceiling that feels too close, breathing through emotions they have avoided for far too long. The silence around them has become loud, filled with thoughts they can no longer outrun. They did not expect this moment. They believed they had more time. Time to decide, time to heal, time to figure out what to do with the feeling that always led back to you. But now, in the stillness of night, all distractions have fallen away, and what remains is the truth pressing gently yet relentlessly against their chest. Their strength has thinned. The defenses they built during the day do not survive the night. They feel the weight of their own choices, not as condemnation, but as clarity. Memories surface uninvited. Moments when they felt safe with you. Moments when they pulled away out of fear rather than wisdom. Moments when they chose silence instead of honesty because silence felt easier than vulnerability. There is a quiet ache in them now, the kind that does not scream but lingers. Regret mixes with longing. Fear intertwines with hope. They wonder if they have already damaged something sacred beyond repair. They replay conversations, read old messages in their mind, search for signs they may have misunderstood you or themselves. Tears threaten, not from weakness but from exhaustion. They are tired of carrying confusion, tired of pretending they are unaffected, tired of telling themselves that what they feel is not real enough, not practical enough, not safe enough to honor. The night strips away those excuses, leaving them exposed to their own heart. They think of you more than they admit, not as an idea but as a presence. Your voice, your energy, the way being near you made something inside them feel aligned rather than strained. They feel the growing fear that they may lose access to that connection, not because you turned away, but because they hesitated too long to step forward. There is guilt in them tonight. Guilt for the ways they allowed others to influence them. Guilt for listening to voices that did not understand the depth of what was forming. Guilt for doubting something that consistently brought peace, even when it scared them. They did not intend harm, but they see now how avoidance can wound just as deeply as rejection. They try to pray, but words come slowly. They try to reason with themselves, but logic cannot soothe what is spiritual. Their heart feels like it is standing on the edge of something irreversible. The thought of losing you creates a tightening in their chest, a realization that surprises them with its intensity. This is the collapse before awakening. This is the moment when the soul grows quiet enough to hear truth without distortion. They are not being punished. They are being softened. Their tears, whether shed or held back, are not signs of defeat. They are signs that walls are finally lowering. They whisper questions into the dark. Have I waited too long? Did I misjudge what mattered? Is it too late to choose differently? They do not know that even as they ask, they are being heard. Not just by me, but by the very presence that stands ready to protect what still can be restored. Their fear tonight is not that they do not love enough. It is that they love more than they are ready to risk. Vulnerability feels dangerous to them because they have been hurt before. They learn to survive by staying guarded, by keeping options open, by never fully stepping into what could break them if lost. But you were never meant to be another risk. You were meant to be a refuge. They feel the distance between you more sharply now. Not just physical or circumstantial distance, but the emotional gap created by unspoken truth. They sense that something is shifting beyond their control, and that realization both frightens and relieves them. Control has been exhausting. Surrender feels terrifying, yet necessary. Do not mistake their silence for indifference. Silence has been their way of coping, not their measure of care. Tonight, that silence cracks. Inside, they are unraveling narratives they built to protect themselves from disappointment. Inside, they are admitting what they were afraid to say out loud. They are not sleeping because their soul is waking up. And while they struggle, you are being covered. You are not meant to feel this breakdown as pain. You are meant to be spared its weight. I have not allowed their confusion to spill onto you unchecked. I have held the line between your peace and their process. This emotional collapse is necessary. Is the ground giving way before something stronger can be built? What falls apart tonight is not the connection. It is the illusion that they could continue as they were and still keep what mattered most. Rest, my child. Let them face what they must. This night is doing important work in them. And though they feel alone, they are not. The same protection that surrounds you stands near them now, steady and patient, waiting for the moment when fear loosens its grip and truth is finally allowed to speak. Stay with me, my child. The night has not finished speaking yet. Beneath the surface of what feels emotional and immediate, there is a deeper layer now being uncovered. What your soulmate is facing tonight did not begin recently. Its roots stretch further back, into moments they rarely revisit, into decisions shaped by wounds they never fully healed. I am lifting what has been buried, not to shame them, but to free them. There is a hidden backstory beneath their hesitation, a quiet history of disappointment and loss that taught them to be cautious with hope. Long before you entered their life, they learned that loving deeply could cost them more than they felt equipped to lose. They promised themselves they would never again give someone the power to undo them. They carry memories they seldom speak of. A time when they trusted fully and were met with betrayal. A season when they offered their hearts sincerely and were left questioning their worth. These experiences did not harden them completely, but they taught them to ration vulnerability, to keep part of themselves protected at all times. They became skilled at appearing present while remaining guarded. There is also a moment, seemingly small, that lingers in their memory tonight. A message they almost sent but deleted. A conversation they postponed because they feared what honesty might demand. A night when they sensed clearly that you mattered more than they were willing to admit, and instead of leaning in, they pulled back. That moment has returned now, not as accusation, but as clarity. Something physical has become symbolic in their mind. It may be an old letter tucked away, a forgotten item, a place associated with a turning point. They stumbled upon it recently or thought of it unexpectedly, and it reopened questions they believed were settled. Objects carry memory, and memory carries truth. This one reminded them of who they were before fear taught them restraint. They have told themselves stories to justify distance. That timing was wrong. That circumstances made closeness impractical. That they needed more certainty before committing emotionally. Some of these explanations were reasonable on the surface, but underneath them was a deeper truth they avoided. They were afraid that choosing you would require them to trust again without guarantees. I see the nights when they lay awake convincing themselves that restraint was wisdom. I see the inner negotiations, the promises to revisit the connection later, when they felt stronger, safer, more in control. But the heart does not obey timelines designed by fear. What is postponed does not disappear. It waits. Tonight, that waiting has ended. The truth they avoided is no longer content to remain quiet. They are realizing that what they labeled as caution was often avoidance. What they called patience was sometimes indecision. and what they told themselves was self-protection has cost them peace. They are also seeing how outside voices influenced them. Advice that sounded logical but lacked spiritual discernment. Opinions shaped by jealousy, comparison, or unresolved bitterness. They listened because it was easier than trusting their own knowing. They allowed others to frame the connection in ways that diminished its depth. This realization is painful, but it is also liberating. Awareness is the doorway to change. They are beginning to understand that not all risks are reckless, and not all safety is found in distance. Some losses occur not because we leap too boldly, but because we never step forward at all. I want you to hear this clearly, my child. None of this hidden history makes you an afterthought. It explains their struggle, but it does not diminish your value. You were never unclear to them. You were simply more significant than they were prepared to face. As this backstory comes into focus, shame tries to whisper to them, telling them they have failed beyond repair. I silence that voice. Conviction brings clarity and invites growth. Condemnation brings paralysis and hides truth. What they are feeling now is not rejection from me. It is invitation. They are seeing patterns repeat, and that recognition unsettles them. They do not want to lose you the way they lost before. The fear of repeating history has become heavier than the fear of risking vulnerability. This is a turning point, even if they do not yet know what they will do with it. You, meanwhile, are not being asked to relive their past or carry their regret. Your role is not to fix what they broke internally. Your presence in their life was never meant to heal them through effort alone. It was meant to reveal what was already waiting to be healed. I have allowed these truths to surface now because the ground is finally soft enough to receive them. Pride has loosened. Defenses have weakened. The night has done its quiet work. What was hidden is no longer protected by distraction. Rest in this knowledge. The story unfolding is larger than tonight's emotions. What is being revealed now is setting the stage for justice, correction, and alignment. Nothing is random. Nothing is wasted. Even the delays are being repurposed. Sleep, my child, with this assurance. What was buried is rising not to destroy but to be transformed. The truth is coming to the surface, and with it, the possibility of a new beginning shaped not by fear, but by courage and grace. Remain still with me, my child. The night has grown deeper, and with depth comes exposure. What hath been hidden not only within the heart of your soulmate, but around them, now steps closer to the light. This is not imagination. This is discernment awakening. There has been a presence near their life that did not celebrate the connection forming between you. Someone who smiled politely while quietly measuring what you represented. Someone who noticed the way your presence shifted your soulmate's attention, softened them, grounded them, changed the rhythm of their priorities. That change unsettled something dark and insecure within this person. This was not always loud jealousy. It was subtle. They wore the mask of concern, of advice, of realism. Words were offered that sounded reasonable on the surface but carried an undertone of doubt. Suggestions framed as protection solely planted hesitation. Questions asked not to understand but to destabilize. Over time, this influence leaned gently but persistently against the direction of your soulmate's heart. This person feared displacement. They feared losing relevance, control, or emotional leverage. Your connection threatened a dynamic they benefited from, whether emotionally, socially, or spiritually. And rather than confront their own insecurity, they chose to interfere quietly. They spoke at moments when your soulmate was already vulnerable, when exhaustion lowered discernment, when fear was close to the surface. They reinforced hesitation instead of courage. They validated avoidance instead of truth. They encouraged distance under the guise of wisdom. What your soulmate did not realize at first was how these conversations shaped their internal narrative. Doubt grew not because the connection lacked substance, but because it was consistently questioned by someone whose motives were not pure. Seeds of suspicion were planted where trust had been forming. This presence also carried envy, though they may never admit it. They saw in you something they lacked, something they had not healed, something they feared they could not compete with. Rather than grow, they chose to undermine. Rather than bless, they chose to influence outcomes indirectly. I have watched every word spoken in private, every suggestion offered under the cover of friendship, every moment when truth was bent slightly, just enough to confuse. Nothing has been missed. Nothing has gone unrecorded. Your soulmate feels the weight of this now. They are beginning to recognize how their thoughts were not entirely their own, how certain fears felt amplified beyond reason, how hesitation lingered longer than it should have. This realization brings discomfort, even embarrassment, but also relief. Confusion makes sense once its source is revealed. This interference was not powerful enough to destroy destiny, but it was effective enough to delay clarity. The delay has ended. The night has removed the noise of outside voices, leaving your soulmate alone with what is real. And in that silence, false counsel loses its grip. The jealous presence senses this shift. They feel influence slipping. They may become quieter or suddenly more vocal. They may attempt one last effort to reassert control or sow doubt, but their words no longer land the same way. Discernment has awakened. I want you to understand something important, my child. This interference was not allowed because you were weak. It was allowed because it exposed what needed to be addressed. Influence reveals alignment. Pressure reveals priorities. What bends under outside voices must be strengthened from within. Your soulmate is not condemned for listening. They are learning. Awareness is rising, and with it, accountability. They are seeing the cost of allowing others to shape decisions that belong to the heart. This lesson, though painful, is necessary for maturity. Do not confront this person. Do not defend yourself. Do not explain your worth. Silence here is wisdom. Truth does not need argument when it is revealed by contrast. The more clarity grows in your soulmate, the less power this influence holds. I'm already removing access. Conversations will shift. Opportunities for manipulation will narrow. What once felt persuasive will feel hollow. The fire that fueled jealousy will no longer be fed. This is justice, not punishment. Correction, not revenge. Alignment, not destruction. I do not tear down without purpose. I restore order where confusion tried to reign. As this interference fades, your soulmate will feel exposed, as if a veil had been lifted. They may grieve the time lost. They may feel anger toward the one who influenced them. They may feel shame for not trusting their own discernment sooner. I am guiding them through all of it gently. You are protected from the fallout. You will not be pulled into unnecessary conflict. You will not be asked to carry emotional debris that does not belong to you. Your peace is being preserved intentionally. This revelation marks a turning point. The enemy's foothold was never in your connection. It was in the silence that allowed doubt to linger. Now that silence has been broken by truth, rest in this, my child. The presence that worked against what was forming has been exposed. Its influence is weakening. The fire of jealousy cannot survive where clarity and light now dwell. The night continues, but the balance has shifted. What was working in the shadows has been noticed, named, and restrained. And from this point forward, nothing will move unnoticed again. Be at peace, my child. The night has reached the hour when intervention steps forward without force. What has been observed, measured, and restrained now meets authority. You do not need to brace yourself. This is not a moment of fear. This is a moment of assurance. Here is a presence that moves differently than the shadows you sensed before. It does not creep. It does not whisper. It arrives with stillness so complete that even chaos pauses to acknowledge it. This is the moment when protection is no longer implied, but active. The one who stands now does not rush. He does not draw attention to himself. His strength does not need display. He positions himself precisely where danger once lingered, between what sought access and what belongs to you. Nothing crosses this boundary without permission, and tonight, no permission is given. You may feel this shift as a sudden calm that settles deeper than sleepiness. A sense that something has been handled, even if you cannot explain how. This is not emotional comfort alone. This is coverage. This is authority taking its rightful place. The presence that steps forward carries clarity like light, not blinding, but exact. Everything that relied on confusion loses footing here. Every influence that thrived in uncertainty finds itself exposed and outmatched. There is no argument. There is no struggle. Darkness does not debate with light when it understands hierarchy. Your soulmate feels this before they understand it. The heaviness that pressed on their chest loosens slightly. Their thoughts slow. The urgency that once felt frantic becomes focused. They do not suddenly have answers, but they sense restraint where chaos once roamed freely. Fear recognizes authority immediately. It knows when it is no longer in control. What once whispered relentlessly now grows quiet, uncertain of its place. Manipulation loses traction. Lies lose momentum. The night becomes still in a different way, not empty, but ordered. This presence does not accuse your soulmate. It does not shame them for hesitation or confusion. It stands as a guard, not a judge. Its role is not condemnation, but protection of what still has purpose. It ensures that no further harm is done while truth completes its work. You are not asked to participate in this moment. You are not summoned to fight or speak or prove anything. You are deliberately kept at rest. There are seasons when engagement is required, and seasons when being still is the most powerful position. This is the latter. The authority that stands now hath been assigned to your night specifically, not because danger was overwhelming, but because destiny matters. When something holds long-term significance, it receives focused protection. What touches your future is handled with precision. Your soulmate senses a line being drawn. They feel less pulled in multiple directions. The noise of competing voices fades. For the first time in a while, their own thoughts sound clearer. Not louder, but truer. They feel watched, not in fear, but in safety. His presence does not force decisions. It creates space for honest ones. It does not remove free will. It removes interference. It ensures that whatever choice is made next will be made with clarity rather than distortion. There is something deeply comforting about knowing someone stronger is standing watch while you rest. Your soul recognizes this, even if your mind drifts toward sleep. You have not imagined the safety you feel settling around you. You have been intentionally covered. The night no longer feels heavy. It feels guarded. Like a door has been closed gently but firmly against what had overstayed its welcome. What remains is quiet, and within that quiet, healing can occur. Your soulmate exhales without realizing they have been holding their breath. Their body relaxes slightly. Their emotions soften from sharp edges into something more honest. They may even feel a strange sense of hope, unexpected and unearned, but real. This is what happens when protection arrives before resolution. Not everything must be solved immediately to be secured. Some things simply need to be held in place while truth catches up. Nothing is escalating now. Nothing is being stolen. Nothing is slipping through the cracks. The night is under watch, and the watch is unwavering. You are safe to sleep. Not because the world is harmless, but because you are not unguarded. The presence that stands does not grow tired. It does not look away. It remains as long as necessary. Let your breathing slow further. Let your thoughts drift without concern. What needed intervention hath been met. What needed restraint hath been restrained. What needed protection has been claimed. The night continues, but it no longer carries uncertainty. It carries order. And you, my child, rest beneath it, covered, watched over, and held in a peace that does not depend on outcomes, only on the certainty that you are not alone, and never have been. Stay near me, my child. The stillness you feel now is not emptiness. It is the calm that follows authority taking its place. And within this calm, something precise begins. This is not emotional movement. This is examination. This is the moment when truth is handled carefully, without haste, without bias. What unfolds now is quiet, deliberate, and exact. Nothing dramatic, nothing theatrical. Just light moving through places that once relied on dimness to survive. Every intention surrounding your connection is being brought into view, not to accuse, but to be understood fully. I look at what was said and what was meant, at what was done and what was intended, at what appeared helpful and what was subtly self-serving. Nothing is taken at face value alone. Context matters. Motive matters. Timing matters. I weigh it all. Your soulmate's heart is being examined with compassion. Their fear is acknowledged without being excused. Their hesitation is understood without being justified. I see where they acted out of self-preservation rather than malice. I also see where they allowed avoidance to masquerade as wisdom. Truth requires both mercy and honesty to be complete. At the same time, the influence of others is laid bare. Words spoken casually are revisited with clarity. Advice given without discernment is revealed for what it was. Not every voice around them carried ill intent, but not every voice deserved authority either. Influence is being sorted now, carefully, without confusion. There is no rushing this process. Justice is not loud here. It is patient. It listens fully before it speaks. Loving is assumed. Nothing is overlooked. What was hidden behind charm, logic, or familiarity is now seen without disguise. Your name is not being questioned in this place. Your worth is not under review. That was never on trial. What is being examined is alignment. Whether choices made honored truth or deferred it. Whether actions reflected courage or comfort. Whether silence served peace or protected fear. Your soulmate senses this inwardly. They feel as if their thoughts are being slowed, arranged, clarified. It is uncomfortable, but also relieving. For the first time, they are not defending their behavior or justifying their distance. They are simply seeing it. Lies do not chatter here. They unravel. They lose coherence. They cannot hold their shape when examined in light. What once felt convincing now feels thin. What once felt necessary now feels misaligned. I separate misunderstanding from manipulation. Not everything that caused pain was intentional. Not every delay was sabotage. Discernment distinguishes between human weakness and willful interference. This distinction matters because correction must be accurate to be effective. Your soulmate becomes aware of moments when they ignored inner nudges, times when clarity was available, but fear spoke louder. They do not feel crushed by this awareness. They feel sobered. Responsibility without condemnation is awakening in them. Meanwhile, the influence that worked against what was forming finds itself exposed, not confronted aggressively, but stripped of subtle power. What relied on secrecy cannot survive transparency. Access is revoked quietly. Doors close without drama. You are not present in this investigation because you do not need to be. Your role is not to testify or defend. You have already been accounted for. Your heart has been seen. Your intentions have been weighed. You stand clear. This process is not about punishment. It is about correction, about realignment, about restoring integrity where confusion blurred lines. Justice here does not seek to destroy relationships. It seeks to place them on truthful footing. Your soulmate feels something lift, not all at once, but enough to notice. The internal chaos loses its sharpness. Clarity begins to replace anxiety. They realize that some of their fear was never about you, but about facing themselves honestly. This investigation does not end with shame. It ends with invitation. An invitation to choose differently with clearer sight. An invitation to step forward without the fog of mixed motives and borrowed fears. I want you to rest in this, my child. What is being handled now is beyond emotional reaction. It is spiritual order being restored. Nothing that belongs to you is at risk here. In fact, what is truly yours is being protected by precision. The night holds steady. The work continues quietly. And as truth is sorted from distortion, the path ahead becomes less complicated, less heavy, less uncertain. You do not need to watch this unfold. You do not need updates. Trust the process. Trust the order being established on your behalf. Sleep knowing that truth is not only rising, it is being handled with care. Nothing important is being wrecked. Nothing valuable is being mishandled. All is being seen. All is being set right. Rest with me a little longer, my child. The balance has shifted now, and what was once tangled begins to move into alignment. This is the hour when unseen hands adjust what human effort could not. No force, no strain, only quiet correction. As the investigation settles, movement begins in places you cannot track. Conversations that were once charged lose their intensity. Plans formed under confusion begin to dissolve naturally. Paths that seemed fixed quietly reroute without explanation. This is not coincidence. This is order returning to what was misaligned. There is activity in the unseen realm that feels almost like a gentle rearranging. What was out of place is being returned to its rightful position. What was given too much influence is being reduced. What was ignored but essential is being brought forward. Nothing dramatic announces this shift. It happens the way dawn approaches, gradually, inevitably. Your soul senses this as a subtle internal change. The mental fog thins. Your emotions no longer feel like a storm pulling in opposite directions. They begin to feel less pressured, less rushed, less driven by fear. The urgency that once clouded their discernment softens into a readiness to be honest. They may not yet understand what is happening, but they feel the difference. The night that once felt heavy now feels spacious. Their breathing deepens. Their body releases tension it has carried for too long. Something within them recognizes that resistance is no longer necessary. Around you, protection tightens gently like a covering placed more securely. You are being kept from absorbing emotional residue that does not belong to you. The thoughts that once lingered no longer stick. Worry loses its grip. Even if questions remain, they do not carry the same weight. Angels move with purpose now, not to battle, but to restore balance. They adjust timing. They close doors that would have led to further confusion. They open space for truth to rise without pressure. This work is careful, respectful of free will, yet firm in its intent. What was delayed is not being rushed to catch up. Alignment does not require haste. It requires accuracy. Every adjustment made now considers the long view, not just immediate relief. This is about sustainability, not momentary comfort. Your soulmate begins to feel less influenced by external voices. Opinions that once felt authoritative lose their power. Advice that once seemed convincing now feels hollow. They are not angry about this. They simply outgrow it. Discernment matures quietly. They may feel a pull toward solitude, not out of withdrawal, but out of clarity. A desire to sit with their own thoughts, to listen inwardly without interruption. This is healthy. This is part of the correction. Noise fades so truth can speak clearly. You, meanwhile, are being given rest without guilt. You are not required to monitor progress or anticipate outcomes. The shift underway does not depend on your vigilance. It depends on order being restored where it was disrupted. There is a sense now that the worst of the tension has passed. Not everything is resolved, but nothing is spiraling. The momentum that once threatened to pull things off course has slowed, redirected, contained. The enemy presence that once hovered finds no foothold here. Influence requires access, and access has been quietly revoked. What remains is neutralized, unable to stir confusion or fear. Your soulmate may even feel moments of peace that surprise them. Brief, gentle, but unmistakable. These moments are not accidents. They are indicators that alignment is taking hold. I want you to notice your own body right now. The way it feels heavier, calmer, more settled. This is not simply fatigue. It is your nervous system recognizing safety. When spiritual order is restored, the body responds. Sleep comes easier now, or at least rest does. Even if your eyes remain closed without dreams, your spirit is resting deeply. This rest is productive. It allows the adjustments being made to integrate fully. Nothing is being forced into place. Everything is being invited back into its proper alignment. That is why the shift feels gentle rather than jarring. As the night continues, this correction deepens. What has been adjusted will hold. What has been closed will remain closed. What has been protected will stay protected. You do not need to wake up tomorrow with answers. You only need to wake up lighter. And you will. For now, remain here in this quiet. Let the shift complete its work. Let the unseen finish what it began. You are not behind. You are not losing ground. You are exactly where you need to be while alignment unfolds around you. Rest, my child. The universe itself is exhaling on your behalf. Stay with me, my child. The night is thinning now, and with it thinning, truth begins to rise gently, like light touching the edge of the horizon before the sun is seen. This is not an abrupt unveiling. It is a steady revealing, the kind that cannot be undone once it has begun. What was hidden by confusion no longer holds together. Small things begin to surface first. A realization that lands quietly but firmly. A memory that suddenly makes sense. A pattern that becomes undeniable once seen clearly. These moments do not shout, but they change everything. Your soulmate starts to recognize inconsistencies they once overlooked. Words spoken by others that no longer align. Advice that once sounded wise now feels hollow. Stories they accepted without question now show cracks. It is not dramatic, but it is irreversible. Once truth is seen, it can't be unseen. There is evidence rising, not always external, but internal. Their own intuition, long suppressed, begins to speak again. It reminds them of what felt right before fear intervened. It brings back the feeling of peace they experienced when they were honest with themselves about you. They begin to notice how their body responds when they think of certain people, certain conversation. Tension with some, is with others. Your presence, even in memory, brings a softness that contrasts sharply with the strain they feel elsewhere. The body remembers what the mind tried to rationalize away. Lies do not collapse all at once. They weaken. They lose their authority. They require effort to maintain, and your soulmate no longer has the energy to uphold them. Truth, by contrast, feels restful. It does not need defending. It simply stands. The influence that once clouded perception now feels exposed. Not villainized, just clearly misplaced. Your soulmate sees how trust was given where it should not have been, and withheld where it was deserved. This recognition brings a quiet grief, but also relief. Understanding replaces confusion. They may replay recent interactions and notice details they missed. Timing. What once seemed supportive now feels self-serving. What once felt risky now feels sincere. The fog lifts in layers, each one making the picture clearer. Michael's presence remains steady through this unfolding, not intervening loudly, not directing every thought, but holding the space where truth can rise without interference. His watch is calm, unyielding, and patient. Nothing disturbs this process now. Your soulmate feels less defensive. The need to justify fades. They stop arguing internally against what they know. Acceptance begins, not as resignation, but as clarity. They are not being cornered by truth. They are being freed by it. There may be moments of sadness as they realize how close they came to losing something sacred. Regret surfaces, but it is not destructive. It sharpens awareness. It deepens resolve. It awakens the part of them that understands value through near loss. You, my child, may feel a subtle shift even without knowing why. A sense of relief without explanation. A quiet confidence returning. This is not wishful thinking. It is resonance. When truth rises elsewhere, your spirit recognizes it. Nothing needs to be forced now. The momentum belongs to clarity, not confusion. What once required effort to hold together will fall away naturally. What is true will remain without strain. This is the edge of dawn, even if the sky outside remains dark. The most important changes often happen before light is visible. The work of the night is reaching its fulfillment. Stay at rest. Let truth continue its gentle ascent. It does not need your help. It only needs time, and time is being given. What rises now will stand. What falls away was never meant to carry weight. You are moving toward a morning shaped by honesty, not fear. And that, my child, is how peace prepares the way for what comes next. Come with me, my child, into this tender hour. The night has done its work, and now the heart that once resisted begins to wake. Not fully, not without trembling, but honestly. This awakening is quiet, but it carries weight. Your soulmate feels it first as regret, a soft ache that settles deep rather than sharp. It is the realization of how close they came to letting fear decide for them. How easily they almost surrendered something sacred to convenience, to outside voices, to hesitation disguised as wisdom. This awareness does not crush them. It humbles them. They see now what mattered all along. Not the noise, not the opinions, not the imagined outcomes that kept them frozen. They see you more clearly, not idealized, not distorted, but real. They recognize the steadiness you brought into their life, the way your presence aligned them rather than pulled them apart. There is fear in them, but it has changed form. It is no longer the fear of vulnerability. It is the fear of loss, the fear of realizing too late what should have been honored sooner. This fear sharpens their focus. It sobers their heart. They replay moments they once minimized. Small gestures, simple conversations, times when you offered understanding without demand. They see now how rare that was, how safe it felt, and how quickly they dismissed it because safety felt unfamiliar. Hope rises alongside regret, fragile but sincere. They begin to believe that correction may still be possible. That awareness, once gained, can still lead to different choices. That awakening does not always come before damage, but sometimes just before restoration. Your pride softens. The need to appear composed, unaffected, in control, fades. They feel the urge to be honest, not just with you, but with themselves. To stop pretending that distance was strength. To stop calling silence peace. This awakening is not dramatic. There is no vow yet, no grand declaration. There is simply truth settling in, steady and unavoidable. They feel exposed, but also relieved. Carrying confusion was heavier than facing reality. They begin to understand that connection does not require certainty to be chosen. It requires courage. That love is not proven by flawless timing, but by willingness to show up when clarity arrives. You are not pulling them toward this realization. You are not chasing them into it. That is important. This awakening belongs to them. It is not pressured. It is not coerced. It is born from truth finally being allowed to speak. They fear reaching out and finding you guarded. They fear that their delay has changed something permanently. This fear is not punishment. It is consequence awareness, and it teaches respect. They understand now that what is precious must be approached with care. At the same time, something gentle assures them that hope is not left. That awakening itself is evidence of grace. That realization arriving now is not an accident. That timing, though imperfect, is still purposeful. Michael remains near, not to push them forward, but to steady them as they face what they avoided. His presence reinforces courage without aggression. It reminds them that fear does not get the final word. You, my child, are not required to soften prematurely. You are not asked to make this easy. Your heart matters. Your safety matters. Awakening does not erase impact. It creates the possibility of accountability. This is the beginning, not the conclusion. Awareness has opened a door. What they choose to do next will matter deeply. But for now, recognize this moment for what it is. A soul waking up, a heart realizing value, a spirit understanding what is at stake. Rest in this knowledge. You did not imagine the shift. You did not hope it into being. It arrived because truth was allowed to rise. The night has carried them to the edge of honesty. What comes after will be shaped by choice. But tonight, awakening has occurred. And that, my child, changes everything. Remain here with me, my child. What has awakened now reaches towards something ancient and unbreakable. Beneath fear, beneath delay, beneath every interference that tried to fracture the path, there has always been a bond held beyond human handling. Tonight, it becomes visible. There are connections that survive not because they were easy, but because they were watched over. This is one of them. Even when silence stretched, even when misunderstanding created distance, even when others spoke into places they did not belong, the thread between you was never severed. It was guarded. You may not have felt it at every moment. There were times it seemed faint, even absent, but it did not weaken. It waited. Sacred bonds are patient. They do not panic when seasons shift. They hold their shape while storms pass. Your prayers, even the ones you whispered without words, mattered more than you knew. Every time you chose grace over resentment, stillness over reaction, trust over despair, you influenced the unseen. You were not passive. You were powerful in ways that did not announce themselves. There were moments when the outcome could have fractured permanently. You were spared from seeing how close it came, not to frighten you, but to protect your peace. The bond endured not because everything was done right, but because it was claimed early by purpose. Your soulmate is beginning to sense this now. They feel the weight of what did not break, even when it should have by human logic. They recognize that something larger than preference, larger than timing, larger than fear has been holding the connection intact. This realization humbles them. It changes the way they view you. Not as an option, not as a chapter, but as a convergence point. Someone whose presence altered their inner landscape permanently. Someone whose absence revealed how much had been taken for granted. They are beginning to understand that destiny does not always announce itself with certainty. Sometimes it reveals itself by what refuses to disappear, by what returns to the heart when all distractions are removed, by what survives pressure. The bond between you does not demand perfection. It demands honesty. It does not thrive on force. It responds to truth. It cannot be manipulated into alignment, but it can be honored into restoration. You are not required to reopen your heart blindly. Sacred does not mean unsafe. Protection remains in place. The same authority that guarded the bond guards you. Restoration, if it comes, will come with structure, not chaos. This connection has always been influenced by your presence, not your pursuit. Your steadiness anchored it. Your integrity stabilized it. Your willingness to trust the unseen allowed correction to happen without collapse. The enemy presence that once tried to distort this bond cannot return to it. Access has been revoked permanently. What remains now must be chosen freely, without interference. A choice will reveal maturity. You may feel something settle inside you as this truth lands. A sense that no matter what happens next, nothing sacred was wasted, that the connection did not fail. It was preserved until truth could handle it properly. This bond does not promise outcome. It promises meaning. It promises that what unfolds will not be random. Whether restoration deepens or paths clarify in other ways, nothing will be empty or unjust. For now, rest in this assurance. What was sacred was never fragile. What was real was never lost. What was watched over had been kept intact. The night has done more than protect. It has revealed the strength of what endured. And you, my child, were always at the center of it, not by force but by design. Come, my child. Let the final moments of this night settle gently around you. Everything that needed to be handled had been handled. Everything that needed to be seen hath been seen. There is no unfinished business hanging over your rest now. Only peace placed deliberately. The danger you could not name has dissolved. It did not leave with noise or drama. It simply lost permission to remain. What once hovered near your path has been escorted away quietly, without struggle, without residue. You were never meant to wake carrying fear, and you will not. The presence that stood watch through the night withdraws now with calm assurance. Not because vigilance is no longer possible, but because it is no longer required. Order has been restored. Boundaries have been secured. What remains is safe enough to be left in your hands again. Your soulmate's path has been stabilized. Not forced, not controlled, but steadied. Whatever choices come next will not be influenced by manipulation or distortion. They will be made with clear sight, with sober awareness, with respect for what is sacred. That alone is a blessing, regardless of outcome. You are released from the burden of waiting and anxiety, from replaying conversations, from wondering if you should have done more or less, from questioning your worth based on someone else's timing. None of that was ever yours to carry. This night has realigned destiny gently, without tearing anything apart. What was bereft will hold. What was clothed will remain clothed. What was protected will stay protected. You will not wake to chaos. You will wake to a quieter strength within yourself. There's a covering over you now that extends beyond sleep. It will follow you into the day ahead. You may notice it as calm where there used to be tension, as clarity where there was confusion, as confidence that does not need validation. Do not rush tomorrow. Let the morning meet you where you are. You do not need to check signs or search for proof. The evidence of this night's work will appear naturally, in timing, in tone, in the absence of pressure. If restoration is to unfold, it will do so with humility and truth. If clarity leads elsewhere, it will do so without regret or loss. Either way, you will not be diminished. You will be strengthened. I am placing a blessing over your rest now. May your sleep be deep and undisturbed. May your dreams be light or absent, whichever brings you the most peace. May your body restore fully, and your spirit wake refreshed. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not waiting in vain. What was meant to reach you will do so without struggle. What was never meant to stay has already been removed. Tonight closes a chapter of uncertainty. Morning will open a chapter of steadiness. Not everything will be answered at once, but nothing will feel unstable anymore. Breathe one last time, slowly and deeply. Let go of the night. Let go of the questions. Let go of the weight. I am still here. I will continue to guide. You are safe to sleep. And when you wake, you will carry gentle hope with you, not as a fragile feeling, but as a grounded truth. Rest now, my child. Peace has settled where fear once tried to linger.